There were a few questions regarding the latest video after awakening cleanup. And I'd just like to clarify some of this confusion. This confusion comes from what some people refer to as initial awakening or mind awakening, different stages of awakening. And this is because awakening can be viewed, relatively speaking, as a process. Awakening, it's a process, but also it can be viewed from the absolute level, a one and done. And on top of that confusion, coming from initial awakening, second awakening, mind awakening, heart awakening, different stages of awakening, sudden awakening, gradual awakening, you can see how there's a lot of confusion in that. Some teachers refer to the start of the awakening as simply just being aware that there's a voice in your head. And others consider awakening to be absolute, like when you awaken from a dream. You can't go back into the dream. That's it. It's permanent. You've simply realized that it was a dream. On top of that confusion, there's also the progressive path and the direct path. And on the progressive path, there's a purification of mind that happens. There could be a mantra or focusing on the breath, concentrating, candle, yoga postures. There's all these different tools. And it's progressive in the sense that you are making progress, purifying the mind. And it's not considered direct because you're going indirectly. You're going indirectly through the worship of a deity, focusing on a candle flame, focusing on the sound of a mantra, focusing on the body of a yoga posture. So it's indirect because we're not going directly to our true nature. Where the direct path, there's no focus of the contents of the mind. There's no trying to clean up or purify the mind. There's no trying to improve the personality. That it goes simply directly to our true nature. So in one way, the progressive path, there's this purification. There's this cleaning up along the way. And the direct path goes directly to our true nature. And there seems to be a little bit of this purification after. Now this creates even more confusion. Because there's then this cleanup that needs to be done after the recognition of our true nature. That sometimes that recognition of our true nature is sometimes no more than a glimpse. It's temporary. So that means that it's still unclear of what we are. There's still strong identification with the mind, which then it feels like we get pulled back into thought. We're still identified. There's still these deep impressions in the mind, these grooves, these patterns that pull us back into the habitual thinking and identifying with the thoughts. So there's this process of stabilizing after becoming established in that recognition, that understanding. And for a lot of people, that recognition isn't 100% clear. It's blurry, which is why it's temporary. There's still ignorance that remains, which is why there's still identification with that which we are not. That we're still unfamiliar with what we are. So this creates a temporary glimpse. And then what's needed is revisiting that glimpse, you could say, continuing to explore and experience our true nature directly, which then helps one establish themselves in and as their true nature. So this is where that cleanup from the last video that I posted comes in. And it's just the difference of, you could see one path, you're cleaning up as you go, as if you're making dinner and you're cleaning up as you go, doing the dishes as you are making dinner and cleaning up the counter. Or are you left with a little bit of a mess? And that's just the difference there between the two paths. And where I find that people are shocked by this is when they either knowingly or unknowingly take that direct path. Unknowingly, and this is actually experientially, some people have explained this, that through the use of psychedelics, they have this temporary glimpse that they have gone beyond thought, that they've peeked through the veil. But then they come back to being identified with thought. And they're coming back to being identified with thought, but they're able to see more of these thoughts. There's still that awareness. It seems like something new, like there's more awareness now, more awareness of these patterns, more awareness of these feelings. So this is going to be a rude awakening, pun intended, to someone who accidentally has this glimpse and there was no progressive purification happening. There was no shadow work happening. There's a lot of suppression and repression of thoughts and feelings. And these people that have had this have actually said things like this, that they can't believe how much anger, they can't believe how much self-hate, they can't believe how much guilt or shame they're experiencing. And actually, I've actually experienced this when working with them, that it almost feels like they've completely changed in a weird way. Like sometimes they're calm, sometimes they're angry. Like you can totally tell that there's this split going on. That sometimes they're able to witness the mind, other times they're totally identified with it. And it seems to almost lash out and feel very threatened in some of the meetings. So a lot of the confusion comes from some teachers and speakers having relative definitions of what awakening is. Where does it start? Where does it end? Is there such thing as awakening? The stages. And that's what creates a lot of the confusion, then there's seem to be two paths, one of progression and one that's direct, that almost seems to be inverted, where one, there's purification on the way, which then finally ends in the attention turning inward and coming back to its source for self-realization. And since there was purification and the identification was loosened and these mental impressions are kind of flattened out, you could say. They're not deep, deep grooves. These patterns are broken. There's not much that's suppressed or repressed. Then one can simply attend to oneself or abide as awareness, abide as the true nature without getting pulled out. And it seemed to be final. And one is established as our true essence. And the other is going directly to the source, turning attention back onto itself, using self-inquiry, recognizing, but still these mental impressions, these patterns, seem to pull the attention. The attention is used to going towards the mind still. So it's still not 100% clear. There's still ignorance in the mind. They're still ignoring the self. So it becomes this exploration, getting familiar, continuing to come back, continuing to go directly back to the source. And then simply abiding as that, which then those patterns are seen and start dissolving by simply seeing it, by abiding, by staying as awareness, remaining as what you are, and not becoming identified with it like you're used to doing. So this creates the two pathways, you could say, clean up on the way or clean up after. And for someone that knows nothing of spirituality or direct path or progressive path, and perhaps just has some sort of awakening through, could be anything, watching a sunset, going through some crisis, mental health, physical health, breakup, divorce, money crisis, psychedelics, something like that, then someone can basically unknowingly get a glimpse of our true nature, go beyond thought, not know anything about what happened, but simply know that there's now more of awareness, more seeing. Like you can't unsee it, what you're seeing, but there's still confusion. There's not complete clarity of what you are. There's not a deep understanding. And this process continues more and more, that there's more clarity, more understanding. And as the clarity increases, the understanding increases. As the clarity and understanding increases, the ignorance is decreasing. And all help to continue to explore oneself by turning attention on the subject instead of objects, to then get to know thyself to the point where you know yourself 100%, absolute clarity, unmistakable, absolutely. And that which you thought yourself to be simply just falls away effortlessly, naturally. Just like when you wake up from a dream in the morning, that upon wakening from the dream, it's obvious that it was a dream because it disappeared. It disappeared. And then you realize that you are not that dream character. You realize that nothing ever happened. If it was a bad dream, then there's a sense of relief, freedom from that nightmare. And maybe you laugh. And that's when it's 100% clear. So it could be seen as very black and white like that, absolutely speaking. That you're either asleep or you're awake. There's no in between. Or it could also be seen, and I'm sure you've experienced this in some of your dreams, that you actually feel yourself awakening. That there's some confusion in the dream. You start questioning. It starts seeming kind of silly. You start becoming lucid. And there's this feeling like, yeah, you are kind of waking up. And there's this process where you're not sure, and it becomes more certain to the point where, just like that, you're 100% sure that it was a dream, and that's when the moment of awakening. So add this into the mix, that the awakening is just like it sounds. Awakening, it's a process, ing. It's a process on the relative level, but also from the absolute level, it's not a process. On the relative level, it's experienced through stages, this gradual progression, but also from the absolute level is that you are already awake, that you awaken to the fact that you are already awake. So what was it that was awakening? That the awakening was actually part of the dream as well. So you see that these different views, different teachers, different definitions, relative, absolute, different paths, progressive, direct, it all makes this quite confusing. But the reason why I put out that video, and I have some that speak about it absolutely, just like that, well, there are no steps. Just like when you wake up. How many steps does it take to wake up? You're asleep and then you're awake. But there's also videos that break down some steps. So just take whatever resonates with you. Those type of videos do attract some people that are going through it on more of a progressive path, and the other video is going to attract someone who's going through it more directly. And then someone who knows nothing of this, and it was just a fluke, it was a surprise, it was something very unexpected out of the blue, then they might find that video. So just simply take what resonates with you, and simply whatever doesn't resonate, just put it aside. Hopefully this helps. I'll see you in the next one.